So you're giving the same message, but a question is always more open rather than a direct statement.
Communication is 90% body language, 10% the actual words. And that's tone
Something
of
like
voice
that.
and everything, yeah.
I think one of the other sort of key areas of persuasive communication is hedging. Do you know what I mean by hedging?
Yeah, like softening phrases, something to make something not quite so concrete, a little bit, easier, flexible, softer.
And the art of persuasion is what we want to focus on today because in the English language, persuasion is less about the words that you use and more about how you say something.
You're thinking of the Barack Obamas, who just, even if you don't agree with what they're saying, the way they speak makes you want to listen.
Welcome to another episode of BizPod. And today we're going to be talking all about the art of persuasion. Your favorite subject.
It is, because I love to get you to take me to buy jellies. I'm going to try and persuade you if we could call past the shop this afternoon. Yes.
You love always getting your own way.
But I like to try and convince you that you were persuaded. I didn't just say,
exactly,
do this.
Yeah, and that's what our phrase is about today. So the phrase, what if we were to do this? What if we were to try that? What if we were to? That's our phrase. Let's talk about the grammatical structure just for a few minutes. We don't normally do this, but in this case, I think we should, because what if we were to sounds a bit wrong, but it's correct grammatically because it's using the subjunctive.
Yeah, another example is wish you were here. Yeah?
Yeah.
I wish I were
subjunctive?
there. Now, if you mention I were there, you think, hang on, it should be I was there. But with the subjunctive, which is for proposing something hypothetical, it can be a polite suggestion. That's a subjunctive mood. It's the mood of, wow, what if this were to happen? And we always use were, not was. So what if we were to is grammatically correct. What if I were to? What if you were to? They are all grammatically correct because they are subjunctive. It's that hypothetical. It's the hypothetical without using a modal. Yeah, like would or could. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Little bit more formal. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit more formal. And you mentioned modals there. A lot of people, when they want to express their ideas, they've already learned those modal verbs, which we tell them modals are important. I think we should do this. I think we need to do that. But those expressions are very direct. They could be seen as being quite sort of forceful or pushy as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're also a little bit more colloquial. They're a little bit more conversational. Whereas what if we were to, this subjunctive is a little bit more formal. It's a little bit more courteous, a little bit more polite. If you've got to be a little bit more careful to make sure that you're not seen as being direct. So it's a subjunctive construction. It sort of follows the pattern of the second conditional. It's a hypothetical sentence. But even though were is in the past tense, it refers to a potential future action. That's the important thing here. Yeah. So, and it's much more formal. Yeah.
Yeah. It's complex grammatically, but it's correct. We want to assure you that it is grammatically correct, even though it looks a bit strange, but this is something that our listeners should start using.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. So if you say, I think we should do this, or I think you need to do this, you're making a statement, very direct statement. Whereas, what if we were to do this instead? Reframes it as a question.
It does.
So you're giving the same message, but a question is always more open rather than a direct statement. So I think people are more open to questions than direct statements.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, could we do this or should we do that? But it's a direct question. Whereas this, well, what if we were to? It's like you envisage in the future, well, what if we do it? What if we don't do it? And you can do the little comparison in your head. So it works quite nicely.
Yeah, I think it does. So that's our phrase. What if we were to? Let's give a couple of examples.
Yes.
What if we were to bring in an external consultant to help us out?
I don't know. Very expensive. I don't think that's a good idea, Paul.
Okay.
What if we were to move BizPod to a Friday?
Ooh, good idea. Well, good potential idea. We need to think about that one, Rachel.
Super Wednesday.
Yeah. What
What
if we were to push the launch back to allow more time?
What are we launching? Have we got a rocket? I didn't know we got a rocket.
Could be anything.
Okay, what if they, the audience, were to find out the truth? Dun, dun, dun.
Don't let them know the truth.
Don't tell anyone. Yeah,
What is
okay.
the truth, by the way? The truth about what?
Well, what if I were to tell you that I am actually a robot? I think robots these days would be a lot more eloquent and a lot more sophisticated than that. I'm thinking of a 1970s, 1980s robot. Show my age.
Anyway, so what if we were to is the phrase for this
Yeah.
week, which
Yeah.
sort of turns any sort of pushy sort of ideas that you have into soft, indirect questions. So it's more persuasive. And the art of persuasion is what we want to focus on today, because
Mhm.
in the English language, persuasion is less about the words that you use and more about how you say something. Do you agree?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, I mean that's a pure sign that you are getting more advanced in your English if you're not just thinking about the words and the grammar, you're actually thinking about how you can manipulate your audience by what you say. And it involves how you say something. Yeah. It's they say, what is it? Communication is 90% body language, 10% the actual words. And that's tone of
Something like
voice
that.
and everything. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how you use your tone and your intonation, how you actually frame the thing that you want to talk about as well. And it's really about getting people interested, getting people to buy into what you're trying to say. And I think some of
Mhm.
the best or the greatest communicators around the world, they have this way of communicating which is just so inviting. I mean, I wish
Mhm.
I was one of them. I know I'm not.
You're thinking of the Barack Obamas, who just, even if you don't agree with what they're saying, the way they speak makes you want to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. They turn you into they make you a collaborator rather than when we think about persuasion and things like that, the art of persuasion, manipulation, you generally think of being a target of
Yes.
manipulation. But good communicators make you a collaborator in the process. Great communicators like Barack Obama, I'm sure we can name hundreds of others around there, make you feel that way. And that's what
Mhm.
persuasion is about.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I think one of the other sort of key areas of persuasive communication is hedging. Do you know what I mean by hedging?
Yeah, like softening phrases, something to make something not quite so concrete, a little bit, easier, flexible, softer.
Yeah. I mean, one simple word, the word perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it softens everything. You can make a really bold statement. When you include the word perhaps, it just makes it so much more softer and inviting, I think.
I'll give you another example, which is hedging, but in a more conversational way. It's the way we've covered this before. It's the way British people use just. Can I get a pen?
Mm.
Can I just get a pen? Can I get an answer on that? Can I just get an answer on that? If you add just makes it a little bit softer, a little bit more friendly, a little bit more fluffy, furry.
Yeah, it does. It's more persuasive, and that's one of the hallmarks of advanced communication using the English language.
Yeah.
People might think that adding these little extra words makes it's what you're saying, less persuasive, but I think the opposite is true, especially with
Yeah.
just and
Yeah.
perhaps.
More conversational, more natural.
Yeah, more natural and sort of more concrete and stronger, I think, overall.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, because I mean, you think about it. If you're friendlier and you make a softer but make a connection with somebody, they're more likely to say yes, to agree, to go with your
Exactly.
decision. So,
Yeah.
you know, directness is there when you need to push back and say, hang on a minute, you're wrong. But if you can go things and use hedging and softer, more persuasive language, you're more likely to get them to agree with what you want them to do.
Yeah. And the great thing about sort of using hedging a persuasive language is it seems like it was their idea in the first place.
Yes, that's the best way.
Yeah. Best way. So anyway, so all about the art of persuasion and the language, your tone of voice, and using words like perhaps or just, very persuasive words, but instead of making a pushy direct proposal, change it into an indirect question. What if we were to try this instead?
Yep, absolutely. Perfect.
Okay. So that's it for this week. We'll see you again next week with another phrase.
Yeah, okay. Have a good week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.